Well, almost 50% of marriages in the U.S. end in divorce, but your love story doesn't have to stop there. If you're lucky in love a second time around, you will want to have some conversations about finances before getting married again. And Stewart Welch from the Welch Group joins us now with some tips on really how to navigate finances in a second marriage. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Claire.
All right, so this first tip really applies to everyone, not just people looking in a second marriage, but making a will. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I think the focus here is in second marriages, particularly where there are children from the first marriage. So typically people want their stuff to go to those children. And so this is really the focus. So I think you need to make a will, because if you don't make a will, you remarry, you have children, and you die, it falls under state law, and state law will allow up to 50% of those assets to go to that second spouse. So probably not what you want. So really important to make that will and say what you want.
Okay, and is it important to do that before you get married or after, or does it really matter?
Well, you want to do it before because you never know when you're going to die.
True.
But
Sooner
if
the
you
better,
haven't done
I
it
guess.
before, you need, like a lot of people watching, half of the people don't have wills. That was a recent Gallup poll. So if you hadn't done it, you want to jump on this.
All right. So also, as you can see on the screen right there, the second point is consider a prenup or postnup. Tell us about the difference between those and which one you recommend.
Yeah, so a prenup is you enter into an agreement before you get married on what's going to happen to those assets. That's really important because even if you do the will, a person can elect against the will in a second marriage. They can elect against the will. If you left everything to your children, they can elect against the will and take up to a third of your assets. So it's really important to consider a prenup.
Okay.
If you hadn't done it before the wedding, if you do it after the wedding, it's called a postnup. It's basically the same agreement.
Okay, same thing, but do you recommend one over the other?
You
Sooner
definitely
the better?
want to do prenup, because postnup's an awkward, they're both awkward conversations, but a postnup is, hey honey, now I want to talk about what I want to do with our assets after.
Yeah.
It's much harder.
Yeah, and thinking of these conversations, entering possibly a second marriage, like any advice on how to start this conversation?
You know, I think that we're doing one right now. We're in the middle of one, and those conversations are hard. So I think you start with, we want to make sure that everybody's assets go where they want them to go, and it's a conversation that needs to happen. So I think do it much sooner in the process before you get married than, don't do it the week of.
Yeah,
So
already too much stress
better,
there.
The sooner the better. And I think once you get over the initial conversation of, we're going to talk about a prenup, lay it off on your advisor, lay it off on your attorney, but it goes much easier once you kind of get past that initial threshold there.
And if there are adult children involved, do you include them in these conversations?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably not. So most cases, that's something that needs to be handled by those two people that are going to get married.
All right. Well, moving on to the third point, the title your assets properly. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so let's say you have a brokerage account and you remarry, and that brokerage account's in your name and you die, that brokerage account is subject to up to half of that going to the new spouse. And if you wanted that to go to your children, a simple solution is to add them to your brokerage account. It's still in your Social Security number, but they're on it, so then it kind of automatically goes to them, and it's just a good tip. So you want to make sure you look at that.
And the last one was updating your beneficiaries, which also goes along to that point, right?
Yeah, it's very similar. If you died and let's say your ex-spouse, your deceased spouse was a beneficiary, you didn't change it, again, half those assets could go to the new spouse. You want it to go to your children. So you want to be very careful and check those as well.
All right, Stewart Welch from the Welch Group, thanks for those tips. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Claire.
All right, well, a gorilla is being